Hi, everyone. Xin chao. Good afternoon. I'm doing my best to record, and I'm finding that my internet's cutting out. So hopefully I can present this to you and give you some information that might help before tomorrow's seminar. So in class, I talked about the idea of having evidence-based practices. If you're going to do a research study and try to publish a study, it's going to be very important that you are doing something that is seen as credible. And it might be that you are demonstrating the differences in the usefulness of something that is seen as evidence-based practice in another part of the world and whether or not it works in Vietnam, but it's really a good idea to start with evidence-based practices. So just a quick introduction. These are practices or programs that have evidence that show they are effective. So they have data that we can look at, and there are rigorous standards, such as the ones that are in our seminar, that are used to determine if the quality of the research article or the research evidence is actually effective. So I have this handout that I want to share. I'm going to go to that now. So let me get out of this part here and switch over to the other application. Yep. Let's go to, oh my goodness, where is it? Let's go to, gosh. Oh, sorry. Hang on a second. Okay, let's go to exit out. Yeah, I killed it, didn't I? Okay. All right. I had a little bit of a glitch. So this is that handout for finding evidence-based practices. I'm going to go to one of my favorites, which is this Iris Center, and it is a very useful resource. I'm going to go here and show everyone this is the home page, and that's great. It's a little bit harder to navigate on my laptop, but basically I'm in here and I can go to the search bar. And in the search bar, I'm going to have you check out different things. One of them might be excuse me, let's see if I can type it in. PALS, a reading strategy. Okay, so you can look and you can type in what you're interested in, but I want to focus on two things. One is called CRA, which is a way of teaching math, and one is SRSD, which is a way of teaching writing. Okay, so I'm doing this now because they will relate to the articles that I'm also going to show you in a few minutes. So I've already typed in what I wanted to show, and I'm now going to navigate to the CRA. CRA is an approach where it's a visual approach for students to understand how to solve math problems. So it's in a category. CRA is one type of a visual representation, which is very useful for teaching math. Okay, so my scrolling around, let's just see, where was that? CRA. Yes, okay, here we go. So CRA, there we are. Okay. Very simply, for some of you who are not really interested in math, but we want to just talk about it so you can think about the article that's going to come up. CRA is concrete, refers to the use of concrete manipulatives or concrete materials that students can use to learn to understand the conceptual aspect of a math problem. So that's the first part of CRA, and then representational will be connecting a symbol to a concrete piece of information so that the numerals here are the symbols that are being represented to show what each one of these blocks, how many blocks are in the manipulative that's right there. So concrete is three-dimensional objects. For example, anything that can be moved around and touched. Representational will be two-dimensional drawings that are used to represent the problems. And then the abstract is the numerals, symbols, and words. Okay, so CRA is an effective approach, and I love to help you learn more about it if that's of interest to you. Okay, so keep CRA in mind. And because some of you are not going to be as interested in math, I'm going to go to writing. Okay, so writing is the one example that I've done so much work myself and I'm familiar with my colleagues is self-regulated strategy development, SRSD. And it's an instructional model where there's actually several stages of instruction. So it takes several days. These 6 stages usually, in my experience, take anywhere from 12 lessons to maybe 20 lessons. Okay, so the lessons in this model take place for maybe 30 minutes at a time, but they're spread out over several days, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. And so it's many, many lessons. Okay. So SRSD is complex because it's for writing, and writing is so complex. Okay. So I want to tell you a little bit about why it's got the SRSD, the self-regulation. These are the aspects: goal setting, self-monitoring, self-talk, and self-reinforcement that are built in for students when they're engaged in writing. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share, because going back, you can look on your own if you have a few minutes of time to see what subject you might be interested in and go to this IRIS Center. Okay, so that's great for finding evidence-based practices. That's just the beginning. The next, and you can scroll through any of these websites as well. Now, though, you're really going to need and want in your team of 3 people to go to journal articles and read examples of studies that show the evidence base for a practice that you are interested in, because you are going to be writing your own article, and it's important in the introduction of your article to establish that your study builds on the work that has already been conducted in this area that you're interested in. And so you're going to want to know about, these are all different titles of different journals. So Exceptional Children is the very highest quality journal in the field of special education, to my knowledge. Okay. The other journals that are super high quality are Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders, and things like Journal of Learning Disabilities. So on each one of these headings, there are different tiers of studies, or tiers of journals, excuse me. And so the top ones are usually the best ones on each one of these categories, depending on what you're interested in. The journals are going to be completely different. Okay, so I want to encourage you to talk in your groups about really being specific about an evidence-based practice that you want to learn more about. Okay, so continuing on, I would like to go to the, yeah, okay, great. So the articles. All right, I have two articles that I've now placed in the folder, okay, so that you can look at in your group tomorrow, okay? I want you to read one or the other article, because the main point is you're going to see information about single case research design and get the big idea about the different parts of the article so that you will be able to see how our topic of dependent variables fits within the overall idea of conducting a study or high quality study. So one article is written by a colleague at the University of Maryland named Golnoza Yakubova and other folks. This is not the most current paper of hers, but it's a wonderful paper. I really love talking about it because it's such a great article. So she did video modeling, which in itself is evidence-based, and she used the CRA approach for students with autism spectrum disorders. And in the article, what I've done is I've highlighted some things in blue because they're the main ideas. And then I have highlighted in yellow things that are not quite as important, some of the details. So I want to read this out loud, that the purpose of her study, their study, was to determine the effectiveness of a video modeling intervention with concrete representational abstract instructional sequence in teaching math concepts to students with autism spectrum disorder. A multiple baseline across skills design of single case experimental methodology was used to determine the effectiveness of the intervention on the acquisition and maintenance of addition, subtraction, and number comparison skills for 4 elementary school students with ASD. Findings supported the effectiveness of the intervention in improving skill acquisition and maintenance at a 3-week follow-up. Implications for practice and future research are discussed. Okay, so in the introduction, she establishes that students with ASD need to know basic academic skills such as math, reading, and writing to be able to perform functional and daily life activities and ultimately increase their independence. However, few research studies examine these strategies on teaching academic skills necessary for independent functioning. So right away in the beginning of the article, they are saying why what they're doing is important. Okay, so that's in the introduction, and I can let you read more. Okay, the next topic that they are going to talk about are the challenges that are known for students who are learning math, students with ASD. Okay, and so some of the details here that they talk about, I won't actually read the whole article, okay, but that it talks about, challenges for mathematics, but then going into, yeah, a little bit more about challenges. Okay, so actually, this could have been more in the yellow. So there's some details here. So CRA is defined by the authors. Okay, you can read that, and okay, you can read that in your groups tomorrow. Okay, and then they also talk about the second part of their independent variable, which is technology-based interventions or video-based interventions, which are known to have a strong impact for students with ASD. Then they go into a type of video-based intervention, which they call it video-based intervention. I think at this point, and it's more recent than nowadays we just say video modeling, okay? But technically they refer to it as video-based intervention, okay? The nomenclature was older at the time. So they're saying in the introduction that we have CRA is effective and video modeling is effective, and they write about it. And notice, by the way, you can see that they refer to several different articles when they're in their introduction. So they're telling you that these are good approaches to be thinking about. And then this is the specific purpose of this study, which is as follows. The research questions were, to what extent do students with ASD improve the response accuracy in solving problems involving a subtraction, addition, and number comparison with single and double-digit numbers between baseline and intervention phases using, and then they spell it out, video modeling intervention with CRA instructional sequence. And to what extent do these same students maintain these skills 3 weeks after the end of the intervention phase? Okay, so in the methodology, they are telling us there are 4 students, Chris, Brittany, Adam, and David. And they are telling us that they met the criteria for ASD. Okay, and then there's specific information about Chris and each one of these students. Okay, so that's for you to look at. So they're establishing that these are 4 kids. It's relevant. They really have ASD, and a little bit about their actual math skills before the study started. Okay, so independent variable is identified and described. So you can look at this. And okay, and then they have the next section is the dependent variable and the data collection. Let me talk a little bit more about that now. So they said that what was relevant here is to score the accuracy of solving problems involving single and double-digit subtraction, addition, and number comparison. That's 3 different dependent variables, but because of each one of these types of math operations, and they were using the percentage of correct responses on a set of 4 of each one of these. Okay, so that's how they were scoring if the student could do 4 problems within one of these operations. Okay, then something that we're going to talk about more tomorrow is what's called permanent product recording, which means they collected the work that the kids finished, and that's the permanent product, and then they scored the students' responses. Okay, so the experimental design is as follows. It is, they're telling us it's single case design, multiple baseline across skills. Okay, so 3 different skills are subtraction, addition, and number comparison. So multiple baseline across 3 different skills. Okay, so then they had to make the materials for the students and they talk about it. They made videos and they talk about that. And then they had a checklist. I think I've forgotten if the checklist was for the students. I guess it is for the students to be using to help them go through and work independently. So they were helping themselves self-monitor if they were using CRA, I'm sure. Okay, and the kids had an iPad. All right, these children participated 3 times a week, and it took 23 days for the study to take place. Okay, so then they're talking about baseline and maintenance, and they're going to go into that a little bit more about the intervention. So the students were learning for, it's saying here, students stayed in the intervention phase for a minimum of 5 sessions and moved to the next phase upon solving at least 3 out of 4 problems correctly per skill for 2 consecutive sessions. When mastery was achieved with one skill and not the other, the student continued to receive intervention for the prior skill until mastery was achieved for the following skill. So they really had the students working for a long time with the content. So then 3 weeks later, they did maintenance probes. Okay, something else related to the dependent variable is the need for procedural reliability, which means did they do the lessons as intended, and then inter-observer agreement to see if observers could agree that the students were doing the work either correctly or with some mistakes, but was there agreement on the scoring of the data? Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow. Again, I'd like you to come in tomorrow and in groups kind of tackle this article or the other one. Okay, so that's that will be very helpful for us to really dig in deeply. Another variable which has to do with the external validity is social validity. And social validity is an outcome, which means is the benefit noticeable? Do students or teachers or parents think that what the students learned was meaningful and is observable, not just in a therapy session? So social validity is an important topic for Thursday, not really as much for tomorrow. So they talk about that, and then this is all stuff to go through. And these were questions in this part here about how they determined the social validity. And then we get to the data analysis. And so then here is the design, baseline, intervention, and maintenance. And these dashed lines are showing you when each phase starts. So baseline was 5 sessions for the learning of subtraction and 7 sessions to learn. Excuse me, I'm really going too quickly. I misspoke just then and I can't re-record this whole thing. What I meant to say is that the baseline is longer for each one of these skills because the intervention is that CRA plus video modeling, and we need to make sure that the students only learn when this intervention is introduced. So that is what I intended to say. Okay, and please, if I misspeak on any of this, please just talk to me in the seminar, and I will try next time not to rush as much. So in the article, the students, each child is going to be given information for each one of these skills. Okay, so that's to look at. And then this one is for Adam. The first graph is for Chris, and so on. Okay, so there's a lot to look at, and I didn't highlight, but it's important information to look at, because what's really going to be important to also think about is what do you take away from this article? Do the researchers convince you that this is an approach that you would try based on the study that they are conducting? Okay, so this is the outcome of the social validity. They told us what it was and how they measured it earlier, and now they're telling us the results. And then they have in the discussion 2 main findings, which I will review. 2 main findings were found. First, there were increases in students' responses on addition, subtraction, and number comparison problems from baseline to intervention, suggesting the effectiveness of the technology-based intervention, which was point of view video modeling instruction with CRA and structural sequence, and continued response accuracy at a 3-week follow-up assessment for all skills for 3 of 4 students. Okay, so much to notice here. They refer to some limitations and recommendations as well, and then the references that they cite. So there's so many references to include when you write a journal article that's in a high quality journal like this one. For the purpose of our seminar, my goal is that each group finds 3 articles on a precise evidence-based approach that you want to try, or a promising practice that you want to try, and that you will be finding and reading 3 articles on your own. Okay, so that's that article there, and one more article. This is a long video. I apologize for that, but I'm going to keep going. So the second article is by a colleague of mine in Turkey. Her name is Ruya, and she and her colleague, and I don't really know how to pronounce his or her name, did an SRSD study on the effectiveness of teaching story writing strategy to students with intellectual disabilities and their non-disabled peers. And this is in the Journal of Intellectual and Developmental Disability, and this is in 2020, so this is a really great article, very recent article. Okay, so they will discuss what the SRSD is. It's instruction in cognitive and metacognitive strategies, and it's one of the most effective approaches for teaching written expression. And then they describe and they review research on that, and they explain the stages. There are these 6 stages: develop background knowledge, discuss it, model it, memorize it, support it, and independent performance. Okay, so then there are 2 specific strategies that they're going to be using. This first one is called POW, or POW, plus WWW, what equals 2, how equals 2. This is an actual approach to teaching writing. So they are detailed here. If you're interested in writing and not math, then please, you're going to look at this in group tomorrow with your colleagues and friends. Okay, so that you could actually see, and again, you could go to YouTube and you could see a little video on what this is, but because this is an article review, I want to keep going. So then they also talk about the WWW part. Okay, so that's part of the strategy. In the approach by Ruya, they also have a revision strategy. They don't tell us as much about it, but it was something with reciprocal peer revisions. Students were talking with each other and helping each other in the writing process and to reflect on it. Okay, so the study aimed to be the first to assess the effectiveness of this with students with ID, also comparing non-disabled peers. These are students in Turkey. Okay, so there were 3 female students with intellectual disabilities from 3 separate classes and their non-disabled classmates who were also struggling with writing. So they were all struggling writers with or without disabilities. Okay, they go into selection criteria. They talk about the students without disabilities, that they also were not doing well. And then they telling us that the experimental design. Okay, so we're going into the design, and what's important to let you know right away is, single case design takes a long time to actually complete. And so I'm highlighting in here how long. The whole study took almost a whole school year. It's very typical. And they have the different conditions: baseline, strategy instruction, strategy assessment, and maintenance. Let me explain what that means here. That means they are going to be graphing when the students were learning and graphing after the students finished learning, which is a recommended practice nowadays instead of a long time ago. So Golnoza Yakubova did not do the 2 types of assessment instruction. Golnoza had 3 stages, and these authors had 4. Okay, so that's important. Okay. All right. So in baseline, what they did was they scored several different variables. The elements of a story, the quality of the story, the amount of time that the students spent planning, and the number of words that were in the total number of words in the stories. They also gave students an opportunity to choose from two or more themes what they wanted to write about. Okay. All right. And then they tell us how long each one of these stages took. So you can look at that tomorrow. Okay. So moving along, their scoring procedures, they're telling us about how they actually scored each one of these things. That's good. Then they also are talking about something we'll get to soon, which is the percentage of non-overlapping data, which is one sort of common effect size. It's not the best, but it works. Um, we don't always have to do the best. We can do something that works. So they reported on that. And then they are going to talk about the inter-rater reliability of the scoring. That's something that is always represented in an article at some point in the paper. So, and then they also had social validity that they measured. Okay, so then they have figures. Figures 1 and 2 were the story elements, and they have two different kinds of stories. One, and that just clicked out. Okay.